Hello, welcome to Metro Nashville Public Schools High Impact Tutoring. This is Module 2, 9th grade math, for tutors who will be working with students in MNPS 9th grade Integrated Math 1 course. Here's an overview of the training modules. You've already completed Module 1, Getting Started. Today, I will guide you through Module 2, 9th grade Integrated Math 1. This module is specifically designed for tutors who will be working with 9th grade math. You'll finish up with modules on Accelerating Scholars Technology and Childhood Protection in FERPA. As you've learned in the previous modules, high-impact tutoring is designed around the principle that when tutors are properly trained and prepared, meet frequently with a small number of students at a time, provide tutoring ideally during the school day, and give regular and quality feedback about student progress, students are given a tremendous opportunity to make up for the learning lost as a result of school closures during the COVID-19 global pandemic. This module continues our effort to provide you with the comprehensive training needed in order to play your critical role as a high-impact tutor. Please take a moment to read through the objectives of this module. In this session, we'll learn about algebra by example and its unique approach to math acceleration. We'll view examples of algebra by example problems and how they're used in a tutoring session. We'll review the research results of implementing algebra by example. And we'll learn how to access and utilize the resources that you'll need for your tutoring sessions. As you can see here, your tutoring sessions are broken down into 3 main sections, beginning with number routines, moving on to spiral topics, and ending with current topics. Current topics occupies the largest chunk of your time and is where you will use the algebra by example curriculum, the focus of the first half of this training module. We'll go in depth about the other 2 sections of your tutoring session in the second half of this training. To get started, let's answer the question, what is algebra by example, and how is it different from typical algebra instruction? Algebra by example is an example-based approach to math instruction. Typical algebra assignments give students plenty of practice solving problems, but they don't usually include practice with mathematical argumentation. Algebra by example gives students practice solving problems and practice modeling, analyzing, critiquing, and articulating mathematical arguments. Although algebra by example takes a unique approach to algebra instruction, teachers and tutors can rest assured that the 9 major pre-algebra and Algebra 1 topics that you see on the screen below support the Tennessee state standards and the standards of mathematical practice that MNPS teachers are already implementing in students' daily classroom lessons. Now that we know what algebra by example is and how it supports students' current learning, let's take a look at what the curriculum actually looks like and how you'll be using it during your tutoring sessions. Let's look at algebra by example in practice. In an algebra by example problem set, students will be given a fully worked problem to analyze. In many situations, although not all, the worked example given to the student contains errors. Let's take a look at this set 1 example. Marvin didn't solve this problem correctly. The student will analyze the incorrect problem and answer the questions given out to the side. Why is Marvin's work incorrect? And how could Marvin have checked whether -3 was the correct answer? Here, the targeted misconception is that the negative signs do not modify the terms that follow them. Once the misconceptions have been identified and discussed, the student has an opportunity to apply corrected understanding to a new problem, shown here as your turn. Next, we'll take a look at a sample problem that has been completed correctly. In this example, the student is asked to answer 3 questions at the top of the page prior to analyzing the example. The misconception is identified for the tutor and further explained with the associated error. Next, the student studies this problem. Eliza solved this problem correctly. Here is her work. The student analyzes the completed problem and answers the questions to solidify their understanding of the skills necessary to fully conceptualize the equation. Finally, the student completes a similar problem independently, using the reinforced knowledge from the sample problem. Whether the student is given a correctly completed problem or an incorrectly completed problem, the teacher or tutor edition of the problem displays the correct thinking and explanation of the problem. Now that we know a little bit more about what algebra by example looks like in practice, let's pause to take a look at the impact that this curriculum can have on our students' progress. We know that a high-quality tutoring curriculum, paired with the frequent interactions between students and tutors over several months, can bridge unfinished learning for our students in a unique way. Students using algebra by example assignments over the course of the year scored 7 points higher on a test composed entirely of released items from standardized tests. In addition, students gained 4 points in procedural knowledge, even though algebra by example students were assigned half the number of problems to solve on their own. Struggling students using algebra by example assignments over the course of the year scored an average of 10 points higher in conceptual knowledge, which plays a critical role in the Tennessee state standards. Algebra by example students who scored low in the pretest scored significantly better than their control peers at the end of the year. Research shows that high-impact, personalized tutoring is an effective way to increase both individual student achievement and collective educational equity. With the addition of a research-based, high-quality curriculum like Algebra by Example, your efforts in partnership with M&PS can do great things to combat the learning loss that our students have experienced. Next, we'll dig deeper into where you can find your resources and materials, how your time will be spent during your tutoring sessions, and how to prepare for subsequent tutoring sessions. Let's take a look at how to access the Algebra by Example materials and other resources that you'll use in your tutoring sessions. To review, the 3 main components of each session are number routines, spiral topics, and current topics. You will begin each session with a number routines activity. It is during number routines that students will get warmed up with an engaging, routine problem-solving activity. Each week, the same 3 options are available for your number routine practice: Splat, Which One Doesn't Belong, and Esti-Mystery. The details of how each of these activities will work will be covered shortly. However, you should plan on spending between 3 to 5 minutes each session on number routines. This is also the point in your session where you'll warmly greet and check in with your student and set the tone for the remainder of your time together. Tutors can access all curriculum materials directly in Go Schoolbox by clicking on the Resources tab of your top menu bar. You will then select View More for the resource you want to access, and you'll be able to open and download resources. Curriculum materials and these training modules are available now through Go Schoolbox and will soon be uploaded to the Tutor Resources page of the M&PS website. Once you've opened the resource links, by clicking on the 9th grade math folder, you'll be taken into the folders labeled Number Routines, Spiral Topics, and Current Topics. We'll take a thorough look inside each of these folders, including the Supporting Documents folder, during today's training. However, since each session begins with number routines, that's what's being shown currently. As I mentioned earlier, once you navigate into the number routines folder, you'll have a list of folders labeled by week. Inside each weekly folder, there are 3 activities: Splat, Which One Doesn't Belong, and Esti-Mystery. Unique examples of these 3 activities are available to choose from each session. The slides and everything you need to complete each number routine are all right there for you, ready to go. Choose one of the 3 activities and you're off to start your session. Shown here are the initial images you would see when opening any one of the number routine activities. In a moment, we'll join Jessica Slayton, Director of Mathematics for Metro Nashville Public Schools, as she describes each of the number routine activities in detail.
Hello, tutors. My name is Jessica Slayton, and I'm the Director of Mathematics for Metro Nashville Public Schools. Today, I'm going to talk to you briefly about 3 number routines that you will be using during your tutoring sessions this semester. Before we look at the actual routines, let's talk about what a number routine is and what it's designed to do. A number routine is a 3 to 5 minute routine designed to be used at the beginning of a class period, or in your case, a tutoring session. The purpose of these routines is to build rapport with students and focus their attention on mathematical ideas. These routines are low-stakes activities, and students should feel comfortable engaging in them. They are intended to reinforce prior mathematical knowledge and provide a safe space for students to share their thinking. You will likely not be teaching any new content with these routines. More likely, you will be reinforcing math vocabulary and helping students learn mathematical habits of mind, such as estimation skills and flexibility with numbers. The 3 routines you will be using each week are Esti-Mysteries, Which One Doesn't Belong, and Splat. Students may be familiar with these routines from their math classes, but even if they are not, the routines are pretty easy to pick up. Let's take a few minutes to look at each of these routines, starting with Esti-Mysteries. Let me share my screen so you can see what it looks like. You will notice as we talk through these routines today that all of the routines are in PowerPoint format. Esti-Mysteries and Splat are both designed to be viewed in presentation mode, so please make sure that you are displaying them that way or they won't work correctly. I'm going to talk you through it before I put it in presentation mode, just so you can see what it will look like when you first open the resource. Slide 1 gives you the title, in this case, Erasing Numbers. Notice that the yellow box reminds you to put it in presentation mode. Most of the slide decks have this reminder. The second slide explains the process. It gives the student a question to answer. Typically, what's the total number of, in this case, erasers? And it tells them to use estimation to make a prediction, and then use the clues to determine if they need to reevaluate their estimation before the final reveal. I suggest that on slide 2, you ask students to take about 30 seconds to make an estimation, write it down, and then explain what strategy they used to make the prediction. For instance, they may tell you that they counted what they could see and then doubled it for the ones that must be hidden. Or maybe they counted one color and then multiplied it by 4. There isn't an incorrect estimation strategy, so validate whatever they share. If they say they just blindly guessed, the next time you do an Esti-Mystery, encourage them to try a different strategy than just guessing. The next slide has the actual clues on it. Slide 4 is so that they have time to determine their final estimation before the answer is revealed on slide 5. There's no need to go past slide 5. Slide 6 is essentially an ad for additional resources. Okay, let's look at it in presentation mode, and I'm going to start from the beginning. See, as you click through, that boxes are animated in. That's happening when you're clicking the space bar or the right arrow. After the first few times you've done this, probably you won't spend much time on this slide because they won't need a refresher of the routine. When you get to the slide with clues, make sure that you're pausing between clues to give the students time to revise their thinking, and that you actually give them time to find their final estimation and share it with you verbally before you reveal the actual answer. And there's this warning here to let you know that your next click is going to be the answer, so that you'll be reminded to have them have that conversation with you. Hopefully, once the answer is revealed, they'll want to talk a little bit more about the process, and you should encourage them to do that. Ask them when they knew what the answer was, or what clues were helpful to them, what things they were able to eliminate based on the clues, that sort of thing. If there was any vocabulary in the clues that was unfamiliar, talk through that with them. If you want, you can actually play along with them. You don't have to look at the answer ahead of time to be able to lead them through the Esti-Mystery. So if you want to estimate and use the clues, you can definitely do that. Now let's take a look at which one doesn't belong. So I'm going to reshare so that we can look at that PowerPoint. Okay, again, it is a PowerPoint. Technically, you don't have to view this one in presentation mode, but you certainly can, just for consistency's sake. Slide 1 gives the title. Slide 2 explains how to engage in the routine, and slides 3 and 4 are 2 different versions that you can engage in a tutoring session. You may or may not have time for both in one tutoring session, so use your discretion. The number routine should only last about 5 minutes, so if you have time for both, great, but if not, that's okay too. The premise of which one doesn't belong is that you have 4 images that you're going to look at to determine which one doesn't belong. It's sort of that Sesame Street, one of these things is not like the other idea. Except in this case, there are reasons that all 4 don't belong. Though this can be facilitated a number of different ways depending on the group size, we're asking you and your student to try to think of at least one reason for each image. Just like Esti-Mysteries, if you participate alongside your student with this routine, it will probably help build rapport. Even if you look at the images ahead of time to think of reasons, that's totally fine. It doesn't ruin the routine and you can still participate. One thing that's important to note is that this routine is not about right and wrong answers. It's about justifying your ideas. So all reasons should be accepted, even those that aren't mathematical at all. But I would encourage you to support your student to move toward giving mathematical ideas, particularly if they tend to focus on things that are really basic or non-mathematical. Let's talk through this example. Once you display the pictures, give the student some time to think, maybe 20 to 30 seconds, to come up with reasons each of the images doesn't belong with the others. Then you talk about it. You can alternate giving reasons for any of the images, or you can concentrate on one at a time, saying something like, what reasons do you see that image A doesn't belong? How you discuss it is up to you. So what sorts of reasons might you say or hear when using this routine? The set of images, they're all very different, so the reasons will be different every time you do it. But for this example, which has 4 graphs, I might say that D doesn't belong because the scale on the X and Y axis is counting by 1s in D, but is counting by 2s on the other graphs. Or I might say B doesn't belong because neither of the lines crosses the horizontal or x-axis at the number 3. Remember that there aren't really incorrect reasons here. Any reason that can be justified is acceptable. This routine is a great way to support a student to use mathematical vocabulary. You can do that by rephrasing their reasons using precise language, or you can work together to revise the reasons to incorporate academic vocabulary. For instance, go back to the first example I gave, that the scale of D was counting by ones. A student might not use the word scale. Maybe they'd say D doesn't skip numbers, or D has odd numbers on it. In that case, you could just say, oh yeah, the scale on D is different than the scale on the others. Or ask what the numerical labels are called to see if they can come up with the word scale. It's a really flexible routine, so do what feels comfortable to you. One word of caution, it is really easy to inadvertently let this routine go much longer than 5 minutes. So just pay attention to the clock to make sure that you don't get caught up in the images. Remember, there are 2 sets in each PowerPoint, but you don't have to do both if you don't have time. Our final number routine is going to be one called Splat. So again, I'm going to share my screen so you can see what Splat looks like. Let me change this format here. And I'm going to go back to the beginning. Okay. The idea behind Splat is very small. Make that larger so you can see better. The idea behind Splat is that each blob or splat you see on the slide covers the same number of dots. The total number of dots is in the box in the top right-hand corner of the slide. The student is trying to figure out how many dots are under each splat. So in this example, the student is trying to determine what number they can multiply by 2 and then add 5 to get 17. For this second example, since there are 4 splats, it would be the number they multiply by 4. And then again, they're adding 5 because there are 5 dots here. And then the total is 21. So let's look at this routine in presentation mode. And I'm going to go back to the first splat in the slide deck. The slide starts with all the dots revealed. You can ask your student to estimate the total number if you want, though that's not necessarily a required part of the routine. As you click through, you see questions and additional information. So once the total number of dots is revealed, go ahead and click again to put the splats on the screen. Notice how it puts questions on the slide, right? So how many shapes are there under each splat and how do you know? Just for clarity, it doesn't mean different shapes, it means the total number of circles. And it has to be the same under both splats because they are the same color. There's a different version of splat where there are different color splats and they cover a different number of dots. Like which one doesn't belong, the important part of this routine is the discussion. It isn't just about figuring out that there would be 6 circles under each splat. It's giving the student the opportunity to explain how they figured it out. See if they can explain how they know in at least 2 different ways before you reveal the correct answer. Notice the transparent splats to reveal the number of dots that are concealed. When it asks what you can learn from the picture, you might want to ask your student to write the equation represented by the image. In this case, 2 times 6 plus 5 equals 17. Or they could even write it as 2x plus 5 equals 17, which is essentially what they solved to find the answer. Through your discussion, help them make connections about how their method for determining the number of dots could also help them solve the equation. Please note that only the first splat in each PowerPoint has the questions on the slide. See, if I click to the next one, there aren't questions, but the routine should be similar for each slide if you do more than one during a tutoring session. Another important note, the SPLAT activities will continue to progress in difficulty over the 10 weeks of tutoring. Some weeks there will be fractions under the SPLATs. Other times there will be a digit in each circle, meaning that the circles represent a number other than 1. I recommend you preview the SPLATs so you know what to expect prior to the tutoring session. Unlike the other 2 routines, you will probably not want to participate in this routine with your students, though of course you would encourage and engage in discussion with them throughout the routine. Well, that is my walkthrough of the 3 number routines that you will be using in tutoring this semester. I hope that you and your student find them to be fun to work through together and that you see how they support your student to grow in confidence and mathematical flexibility throughout the semester. As I wrap up today, I want to take this opportunity to thank you for serving as a tutor. Your investment in the students of MNPS has the potential to make a huge difference in the lives of our students. Your work as a tutor is greatly appreciated, so thank you, and good luck and have fun.
Once you've completed the number routine activity of your choosing, you're ready to begin the next component of your tutoring session, spiral topics. You'll have between 5 and 8 minutes to complete this portion of your tutoring session. The materials associated with this section come to us from Algebra by Example or Math by Example, depending on the specific topic. They focus on computational skill and fluency. In the event that you expect to find yourself running short on time, it's possible to condense this section of your session by a couple of minutes, if necessary. However, it is important to maintain the integrity of the overall session format, and no section should be omitted completely. Once you've navigated to the 9th grade math folder, choose spiral topics and the general topic you wish to practice during this time. Once you've selected a general topic, you'll find a list of targeted lessons within that topic area. Each document is labeled describing the skill the lesson covers. It is strongly encouraged that the current topic of your tutoring session is intentionally tied to the spiral topic. It is here in the spiral topics where there's a fantastic opportunity to connect computational skills to a deeper conceptual understanding of the student's mathematics practice. Possible questioning for your students might include things like, where have you noticed this skill being used in your classroom lessons recently? What connection does this have to yesterday's current topic? Why do you think this was our spiral topic today? How will this help you in class this week? Take note that with each lesson, there may be several example problems for the student to work through. You can navigate through the examples in the top right corner of the screen. As a reminder, you have between 5 and 8 minutes to complete this portion of your tutoring session. The example below shows a spiral topic on fractions and division. You can see there are 4 different lesson sets to choose from. If we click into division of a fraction by a whole number, you'll see a set of problems similar to those pictured on your screen. Now that you've learned how to navigate your way through 2 of the 3 main components of your tutoring session, let's move on to current topics. The third and final part, current topics, makes up the majority of your tutoring session. You should spend between 15 and 20 minutes on current topics. However, 1 to 2 minutes of this time should be reserved for adequately wrapping up with your work and dismissing your student. Let's get started in current topics by once again navigating to the 9th grade math folder and then selecting current topics. For today's training, we're going to look at how to access 9th grade math unit 4 functions and land on a lesson about function notation. Start with the current topics folder, move into the correct unit. As I mentioned, we're looking at unit 4 functions. We're looking to land on a lesson about function notation. So we'll click in the topic folder, using and interpreting function notation. And here you'll see 3 different lesson files provided. You may notice that the lessons for some of the later units have not all been uploaded yet. We will continue to add curriculum content to these folders prior to the start of those units. Once you've selected the specific lesson that your session will focus on, you have arrived. Similar to the examples shown during the spiral topics, each lesson file can contain multiple problem sets, and each example may include several pages. Pay close attention to the navigation opportunities within each file to ensure that you're covering everything the lesson has to offer. Now that you have today's lesson open, here's where you implement all the additional training you've received regarding math or algebra by example earlier in this module. We see that this lesson includes 2 different examples. The first one being an incorrect sample for the student to analyze and practice. Once they're ready to try another example, use your best judgment to determine if a correct or an incorrect example would better reinforce their learning, and select from the additional options within the same file. Remember, this is where the critical work lies. Motivate your students to be detectives in finding the mistakes, support and encourage them as they struggle, and don't forget to celebrate when new learning takes root. As your 15 to 20 minutes of current topic time comes to a close, leave your students with some quick feedback, areas you're proud of, and where your focus will be at the next session. Remind them of the hard and important work that they are doing and your commitment to their success. Congratulations! You've now completed all of the components of your high-impact tutoring session. We've taken a look at many of the resources that you'll find in the 9th grade math folder, specifically the subfolders for number routines, spiral topics, and current topics. But you'll also notice a 4th folder labeled supporting documents. When you access the supporting documents folder, you'll have several resources available. First and foremost, you'll find the answer guides for math by example and algebra by example. We've provided the answer guides to the problem sets that you'll be using so that you're able to check those answer guides and be fully prepared to guide your students through the problem sets. In addition to the answer guides, you'll also find a document that provides a helpful table of contents for all of the resources available to you in the spiral topics and current topics folders. The table of contents document contains a list of all of the topics, how many resources are available to support that topic, and the general alignment to the student's M&PS curriculum unit. Note that spiral topics should be selected based on student need. If you don't have guidance from your tutor lead, you can use the general alignment provided in the table to narrow down choices to use for a given week. It's not a problem to use spiral topics during units other than the ones specified in the table above. The most important factor is student need, not timing. We do ask that tutor leads frequently update math tutors on the current unit and topic being studied in math courses. Of course, you can also discuss with your student to get a general understanding of what content they're covering in their core classes. All of these pieces of information can help you use the table of contents to select the appropriate resources for your upcoming tutoring sessions. So putting this all together, how do we best prepare for tutoring sessions? Before each session, we recommend that tutors spend approximately 15 minutes locating and organizing your session materials. Included in these materials will be the specific number routine and spiral topic that you'll be using, as well as the current topic based on what students are covering in class right now. Once you've located these resources in the 9th grade math folder, spend the remaining prep time reviewing and completing sample problems so that you can anticipate student misconceptions and plan to address them. Here are some quick notes for successful planning for tutors of accelerating scholars. As we said, set aside 15 minutes to plan for a successful session execution prior to the start of each tutoring session. We also recommend that tutors log in 3 to 5 minutes early before each virtual session to ensure that you're on time and ready to start when the student arrives. As your 30-minute session comes to a close, finish the activity of the day or get to a good stopping place. Spend some time reflecting on what went well and giving any positive feedback to your student about his or her effort. And finally, be sure to complete your session feedback survey after every third session. We'll address the feedback completion more in depth in Module 3. After your session, make sure you know what was completed, any places where the student struggled, and where they had successes. As we've said, complete the weekly session survey and prepare for your next session. We'd love to hear from you. What questions do you still have about the curriculum materials for 9th grade math? Please share any questions with us by emailing tutoring@mnps.org so that we can ensure that you have all the support you need to be a successful tutor from day one. Each school has a tutor lead who is designated to assist tutors and students with making the program run smoothly. The tutor lead should be your first line of contact in the event of an emergency or if you have any school-specific questions. If you have questions about policy, tutoring practices, anything that goes beyond the school level, including questions about the Go Schoolbox platform, you can submit those to tutoring@mnps.org. Thank you for serving as an Accelerating Scholars tutor. Your contribution to student learning is invaluable. And thank you for taking the time to complete this module. You may now move on to Module 3.